You are a toy!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Does It Hold Up podcast with myself, Adam, and
Emily.
And today, if y'all didn't get it from the beginning, I'm sure you did, because we are not toys, but we are going back to 1995 and Pixar, yes, that Pixar's very first feature film. And the very first completely computer-generized? That's not a word. It's
Generated.
Computer-generated film. And that is the very first Toy Story. The movie that set out a franchise and traumatized kids thinking that their toys were real when they weren't in the room.
The movie that started it all for Pixar.
Started it all. I mean, this is the movie that had Disney go, you make too good of things. Maybe we should buy you.
It was the first movie to go, what if this inanimate object had feelings?
No. That would be The Brave Little Toaster. Did it way before Toy Story. Don't worry, we will eventually get to that movie because it's one of my all-time favorites.
It popularized
it. Brave Little Toaster was very popular when it came out. It just didn't spawn a franchise because Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars was absolute garbage. Okay? It tried. It really tried. Anyway, back to the movie we're supposed to be talking about. Although I could talk about the Brave Little Toaster all day.
Save it for another time.
All right. Well, you started it. All right. So, again, we're talking about Toy Story today. Did you know Toy Story was nominated for 3 Oscars?
I did not, though I'm not entirely surprised.
Do you know how many it won? Because remember, there was no Best Animated Feature back in 1995. That category didn't exist. So it was nominated for 3. How many did it win?
What?
0.
Oh.
0. His movie won 0 of the 3 Oscars. The 3 Oscars it was nominated for were the Best Screenplay. Fine.
Yeah.
Best Original Song, I mean, You've Got a Friend in Me's a banger.
That is fair. I
Randy
can't
Newman.
help but sing that every time it's on.
Exactly. So I totally get that one. And then Best Score. Again, wonderful score.
Yeah.
Wonderful score. But it didn't win. But it was a brand new thing in the world that hadn't really been done before. So even for it to get nominated just shows the respect that Hollywood and the audience and everything had for that movie. And still have for that movie. So, just interesting. Because, fun fact, since we're talking about the Oscars, just another fun fact about them. This was the first movie in Oscars history, first animated movie in Oscars history to be nominated for Best Screenplay.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's changed. It's happened since.
Yeah.
But this was the first. I mean, it literally changed the way filmmaking was done. This computer-generated, not generized, generated film changed movie landscape forever. Whether good or bad doesn't matter. Forever. That's just impressive, no?
Oh, definitely impressive. It paved the way for so many new avenues for the animated world. It made things possible that were never possible before or would have taken just a million years before.
I mean, agreed. 100%. So, before we really start breaking down this movie, what can hold up, what does hold up, what doesn't, all that good stuff. Just give me your overall thoughts on the movie as a whole. What do you think?
I hate to disappoint. I've actually never liked these movies. I've always had...
Wait, like these movies? Or movie? Are you saying you don't like any of the Toy Story movies?
I can appreciate them.
No, that's not the question. Are you saying you don't like any of the Toy Story movies? Not 1, 2, 3, or even 4?
I'm saying that because I just can't get into the characters.
All right, well, you're dead to me now. So from now on, I will be doing this podcast entirely by myself. That's insane. I understand not liking the first one.
Like I said, I appreciate them. They're very good movies. I just personally don't care for them, and that's mainly because of, I think, Woody. He is my biggest problem of all of them, and I just have never been able to back him and like him as a protagonist, so therefore the movies are just...
Okay, that's...
What about you? I assume you like them?
I do not like Toy Story 1. I respect it, and I understand. I mean, I was a kid when it came out. I was 9 when this movie came out in theaters, and I saw it, and I loved it, because I was stupid. I was 9. I had no idea what I was talking about or doing. I was like, ooh, toys, awesome. Went home, played with my toys, and I was like, do you come alive?
I will say that did definitely happen to
Yeah,
me.
and I was like, I just set it there, and then like I peek through my door and be like, hey, did you move yet? Okay, close the door, open it again real quick. Are they moved? Did they move? Like,
See, now I had to make sure I had a rotation of who got to sleep in the bed with me, just to make sure.
See, so whether you like the movie or not, it changed your life.
It had an impact, I'll say that.
So, you know, I was that age. It was that movie, but I didn't really like it later in life as I watched it more and more times. Is, you know, not a huge fan. I don't like the second one either. It's okay. I definitely don't like the third one. You know, blasphemous to most people, and
Yeah.
you know, drop into the, you know, come onto our Twitter at Does It Hold Up 13 and tell me all about how I'm wrong, that Toy Story 3 is a brilliant movie and it's one of the best things ever made. But I am a big fan of Toy Story 4. But I understand that we only got to 4 because of everything that came before. So it's like that respect to get where we had to get to.
Yeah, the series overall has a wonderful storyline. They grow throughout every film. It's great. I've never been the biggest fan.
That's fine. That's fine. So Toy Story was directed by John Lasseter. We're not going to talk about John Lasseter all that much. If you don't know, you can Google it. That's not the stuff that we get into here. He doesn't work for Pixar anymore or Disney. I'll let you find that out on your own as to why.
Ooh.
Not that kind of podcast.
Yeah.
But I think he did a great job. It must have been a little hard. I mean, you're not working with anything in particular. It's a bunch of guys sitting at a computer going type, 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 type. I mean, you can only do so much. But and I don't think his touch is really on it that much.
It's always really hard to talk about directing when it comes to animation because there's so much that it's just like, what did you fully do?
You're the overall director of the film. You verify the screenplay. You overcheck everything. You work with the actors. You do all that. But at the same time, there's art directors. There's voice directors. There's these other kind of directors that really, that's where I think a lot of the play comes in.
Like you have an overall vision, but without these other parts, you're kind of dead in the water.
Exactly. So I think he was fine, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. We're not going to talk about the directing because there's not much to talk about. But one of the things I do want to get into is the voice acting. Because, you know, you have Tom Hanks as Woody the Cowboy, and you have Tim Allen, of all people, as Buzz Lightyear.
I thought he did fantastic.
I know, I get that.
But
did you know who Tim Allen was?
Yeah, actually I did.
You did? Okay. How did you know who Tim Allen was before you saw Toy Story?
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
So you're telling me you watched Home Improvement before Toy Story?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay. Well, you are outside the norm, because that's great.
I would have expected him to make that noise, I can't even do. Yeah, that noise.
Yep.
So to know that it was him in that role, and to not really hear Tim the Toolman Taylor in it was actually amazing for me.
Although it's really funny because when they're in Sid's room and Woody's underneath the milk crate and the toolbox is on it, it's a Binford toolbox. It says Binford on it, and you know, as a kid, you're like, I don't know.
That's a
Watching
nice
it as an adult, though, you're like,
tidbit.
That's the company he worked for on Home Improvement. Nice. I like that. I don't know who got the rights for that or how they did that, but it was
probably just Tim being like, just put it in there.
Whatever. I'll deal with it later. But for me, it's more or less like Tom Hanks is a huge actor by 1995. He's been in he just won the Oscar in 1994 for Forrest Gump. It was Best Picture. He is so well known, but not for his voice. He's a great actor, but not for his voice. Like, nobody sits there and goes, oh my God, Tom Hanks' voice is so good. We got to put him in all these voiceover things. And Toy Story was like, nah, it's cool. Get him. We like it. Get him.
And he did fantastic.
Yeah, he's a little annoying, but that's more the character.
But that's the character, because you see him in several other films, especially, later on in his career, where he had to do all these types of accents, and he really got into the role by using his voice. So I thought this kind of really sparked that in him. Well, I mean, not really fully, because Forrest Gump, he had to do the voice too. So, that's how he does the voice in Forrest Gump?
Yeah. I mean, he talks in Forrest Gump. Yeah, he does. He talks. I get it. He has a voice in Forrest Gump. It makes sense.
Yeah, that the specific way he talks in Forrest Gump. I'm not even going to try to do that one because we all know that's not good. But I just think he melds into the role really well with his voice.
I mean, agreed. He's a great actor. Of course, he was going to pull it off. It's just interesting, like, to go that route. And then with Tim Allen is like, who are you? Why are you this astronaut, spaceman, ranger?
But they embodied those characters so well. Like, you could not really see those characters as having any other voice after having those actors portray them, which is kind of why it was an issue for Lightyear not having.
Oh yeah, if you guys didn't
Tom
know,
Hanks. Or not Tom Hanks.
If you haven't paid attention to the first 2 episodes of this podcast, we always have a reason for why we pick certain movies that we do. We're doing Toy Story this week because Lightyear just came out and bombed at the box office last weekend, so we thought we'd go all the way back to what started it and was an actual box office success.
Yeah.
Didn't fail. Didn't have good feet right out the gate. Like, it stumbled a little, but then it took off. Word of mouth just spread it.
I don't think Lightyear's gonna get that, though.
No, probably not.
Anyway.
So it's just, for me, it's interesting because you go to animated films now, and you've watched Disney do it for years, but when you're getting like these big, you get a lot of big high profile people in animated things, but this is where it started. Before Toy Story, you weren't getting big A-list actors really to come in and do voice work. You had specific artists who are known as voiceover artists to come and do these things. And Pixar was like, that won't sell a movie.
Yeah.
We need a name attached to it. And that's just interesting to me because it could have gone so poorly.
Oh, yeah.
And yet somehow they picked these 2 random dudes who you never would think would be voiceover artists and gave them 2 of the most iconic animated characters.
Oh, yeah. Specifically Tim Allen, because he was known for doing that wacky voice with, Tim the Toolman Taylor. Have to say the full thing every time. So, like, that was critical to his success in that show, and to then give him this role as a space ranger, where you have to be quite Dynamic, yes.
And a little otherworldly.
And for him to just knock it out of the park, the voice acting holds up 100% for me.
Yeah. And then to go and pull people like, obviously Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, they're the 2 known for this, but and they were fantastic. But when you go and get people like Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head, like, I'm sorry, he is the epitome of Mr. Potato Head. Like, I can't ever hear anyone else be Mr. Potato Head. And then you get, Wallace Shawn as Rex. You don't recognize that name, but if I said the word inconceivable to you, you would probably know exactly who that is.
Inconceivable.
He plays Rex. You get Jim Varney as Slinky Dog. John Ratzenberger, who's been in everything Pixar since, is the voice of Ham,
he is their good
the
luck
pig.
charm.
And everybody knows him from Cheers.
Yeah.
He was on Cheers. That's all we know. He didn't really do a lot of big things outside of that. And then he became Pixar's good luck charm. Who would have thought? You have Annie Potts as Bo Peep. I know she doesn't get a big role in this first one, but you'll know her as the secretary for Ghostbusters. Annie Potts. So like these are actors that people knew in 1995, and they were like, "Hey, speak into a microphone." Oh, do you want me to act? No. Just speak into the microphone. I mean, like, act with your voice, but like, don't move your body. Don't just speak. It's interesting.
We're gonna hold you in this tiny little box.
And now every...
Voice this ridiculous character.
Yes. And now every single movie's like, all right, we need A-list actors. Oh, who's free?
The Rock.
Let's put The Rock. Let's put him in everything. Terrible. Or even like, Pixar's Onward, one of their more recent films from 2020 is like, you got to have Chris Pratt and Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Like, those are two of the biggest names right now because of the other stuff they're doing, and you put them in the movie now. And it's crazy to think it all started with Toy Story and how good it was when it could have gone so horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Not having trained voice artists come in and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also helped because the script's great. To me, anyway. Like, I think a lot of the little jokes are, it's a lot of the Disney stuff, right? Where you make a kid's movie and they're kid jokes, but you just get those little innuendos and those little nods that the adults get to chuckle at. And I think this movie did it so well without crossing any lines.
Oh, agreed. They had little subtle remarks that flew over my head as a kid. But watching it now, I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Exactly.
So the script was really, really well in that aspect.
And what aspect was it not good in? I see the way you're wanting to say something. Go ahead.
Once again, just the portrayal of Woody. I mean, I get where he's coming from, where he's going, but I had a major problem with the fact that he basically doesn't learn really anything. He's only really doing a lot of what he does just for him.
I don't disagree, but at the same time, he clearly learns because by the end he's accepting. I mean, that's
he's
growth.
Accepting and he's helping Buzz, but at the end of the day, I think he would have gone back without him.
Well, sure.
Pretty darn quick.
Yeah, maybe. What really worked for me, and I know we're only talking about the first Toy Story, but I like that they left it a little open at the end, where you can tell, he's accepted Buzz, but he still wants to be Andy's favorite, because that's what plays into the 3 other movies. Mm-hmm. You get to watch him. His story didn't finish in Toy Story. His Toy Story kept going through more movies. I don't know if Pixar, had that idea when they wrote this script, hey, we're going to end it here so that we can build. But it kind of worked that's how they ended.
Yeah.
Interesting that you don't like him, though, because, fun fact for all the listeners, this was not the first run of Toy Story. In fact, they animated a little quick animation of Toy Story originally, and they went and showed it to the heads at Pixar and everything, and Disney, and it wasn't going to get greenlit. They were like, no, don't make this. This is terrible. And their biggest complaint was, Woody's a jerk.
He's a sarcastic jerk.
In the first draft, Woody was a sarcastic jerk that was super unlikable, and they literally said no. They were like, nah, don't make this. Scrap it. And funny thing is, and this could be why he continues to be in all the movies, John Ratzenberger actually went up to the head of Disney at the time and said, why don't you like this? And he said, Woody sucks. And he's like, cool, we're going to rewrite this. And he actually helped, keep that communication line open so that Pixar could rewrite it, make Woody more likable, and then now we know what happened.
And yet I still disliked him and thought he was a massive jerk.
He is, but I can only imagine how much worse.
Even as a kid, I knew he was a jerk, and I just did not care for that character at all.
So, but the story, let's talk about the story in terms of the script, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not a crazy story. It's not some out there story where you're like, oh man, I've never seen this before. It's just a guy who's a little insecure about the new guy, and shenanigans happen. Mm-hmm. But I think it works well because the fact that they're toys, they really got to push the envelope of things that could happen, and they really just ran with it. They threw everything at the board, and it worked. It's a really good buddy story of acceptance and growing to appreciate other people.
Yeah, they got to really do some ridiculous things because they were toys and because you could, have them smashed with a giant set of tools and they're okay.
You can have them torn apart and put back together, and just it doesn't matter. I mean, sorry, but you can't rip off a person's arm, sew it back on, and have the audience go, "That's cool."
Yeah, you can't have a guy fall, 100 stories and have his arm pop off and just be like, well, I guess I can't fly.
I mean, you could. I don't know how well it would go over. But...
I mean, he'd probably be dead.
But, just with the story, it's just really good. Like, one of my favorite things about Toy Story, watching it when I was a kid and even watching it again, we actually just watched the movie today so that we'd be real fresh going in. We watched it way early this morning. And one of my favorite things is that this story doesn't have any, prelude. It just goes right into it. It's like, okay, these toys, they're alive. They do stuff. Wait, what? It's Andy's birthday? Oh, man, there's another toy? Here we go. And they hit the ground running, where I feel like modern animated films have this whole, 25, 30, the first quarter to third of your movie is all just set up, and nothing's happening.
Oh, yeah, it's all
this
that
one goes right
average
into it.
day kind of thing in movies. And you got that in a 5-minute span of that first meeting with Woody and the toys, where you got his status amongst the toys, and you got the fact that he was the leader, he was his favorite, that status quo, and now here's the birthday to mess it all up.
Exactly. Before we continue, fun fact about Andy's birthday. If you pay close enough attention during that scene when the army soldiers are looking at all the kids and the mom walks in and says, "Who wants cake? Let's go." Or "Who wants to open presents? Let's go." Mm-hmm. And they all head into the other room. If you look close enough, every single child at that party is Andy. The computers, they didn't have the time nor the capability to create multiple different character designs. So every single character, every single kid in that scene is Andy, with a different skin tone and different clothing. Every single model is exactly the same.
You're so full of fun facts today.
Just trying to spice up life, keep things interesting. I just think that's what a workaround. It's such a split-second scene that watching it, especially in 1995, you just don't notice.
I mean, to be fair, I still don't notice.
You still don't notice until you pause it in high resolution and all that stuff. But it's just that's smart.
Yeah.
Just smart. But back to the story. So they get in, and the way Buzz is introduced of no, I'm a real Space Ranger. I'm not a toy. And that's when you get that infamous line of, "You are a toy!" It's great. And it immediately tells you who he is and who Woody is and where they're at, that the story can happen quickly.
It also gives Buzz his own story to go through. He's not just the antagonist for Woody. He has to learn and kind of come to grips with the fact that he is a toy. Mm-hmm. And that is a massive plot point for him that he has to overcome later on in the film.
Exactly. The story for me in Toy Story is so good because they're juggling a lot of things at once, but they never really drop anything. It all plays with each other to finally come to a resolution.
I mean, even the whole little plot point of Rex trying to become more threatening.
Yeah.
It's stated at the beginning, we hit it a few points throughout the middle, and then even at the end during Christmas, he's like, I hope it's a leaf eater dinosaur.
So I can be the dominant one. It's his whole arc throughout the whole thing.
The small details in this film are absolutely amazing.
Another little thing is the Mr. Potato Head at Andy's party. Mrs. Potato Head, Mrs. Potato Head. He's hoping for one. And then at the end at Christmas, there's a Mrs. Potato Head. So everything kind of comes full circle, which is the idea of a good story, of good storytelling. Because if you look at something, I'm going to throw some shade at another beloved animated film, but if you look at something like Frozen, what's your stories there? You get one. Elsa's run off and she's got ice powers, and I guess you get two.
Yeah.
She's got ice powers, they're trying to rescue her, and Hans is a dick. But that's it.
It's two massive
Anna doesn't
stories
have
there.
her own story.
She does. It's finding love.
No, but it's not. There's no focus on that. In fact, her whole thing is focused just on Elsa. If anything, Kristoff's story is trying to hook up with Anna. But there's no layers to some modern movies. Throw shade out there again. We just watched Turning Red it's one of Pixar's newer films on Disney Plus. Can't get to it because it's still too new, so we'll never talk about it. But, maybe in 10 years we'll talk about it. But right now, like, watching Turning Red again, it's a singular focus story. It's her story. The friends don't have stories of their own.
Yeah.
The mom doesn't have a story of her own. There's little bits and pieces, but there's not a story there. But here, Buzz has a story, Woody has a story, Sid has a story, Andy has a story. All his friends have their own little mini stories within this larger story. And that's why the storytelling in this movie is just amazing for me.
Yeah, it could have been so easy just to lose a plot point here or there, just have something be a throwaway line that doesn't really matter at all.
Oh, but you could tell they put care and love into it. They didn't want to drop the ball. They knew this was going to be game-changing, so they put everything they had into it.
Yeah.
So, very cool, very cool. This movie's got flaws, though. It's got flaws. Let's talk about a huge one. Everybody's talked about it since basically the movie came out. Why does Buzz act like a toy if he doesn't think he's a toy? I mean, there's theories out there.
Yeah, it's all speculation at this point because there really are no answers, and that does happen a lot in this movie of like little things here and there of why does that happen when this has been established, but that also happens. And it does happen quite often in the film.
It's a lot of little things that they kind of just dangle and leave. Like, these toys Sid's toys. Sid's the bad guy in this. The next door neighbor kid who likes torturing toys, taking them apart, putting them together. How do these toys still function? He's ripping two toys all apart and putting different things on whatever, and somehow they still work. Or he rips them in half and somehow they're still moving. Like, how do toys function, basically? Because if they're like people, when you get ripped apart, you can't keep going.
Yeah, the movie never tells you.
No.
It's magic.
It's literally just magic that works only when people aren't around until it's convenient, and then it can work when people are around.
Yeah, because we have that instance where the mom steps on the army guy, and then he's actually injured. But then... we have
other people are moving and doing whatever.
Yeah,
these broken apart the hooker.
The
hooker. How does it's a fishing reel with legs? How does it move? How does it do how does it think?
They have this problem in the fourth movie too, where the spork. Yeah.
But at least it's got like a mouth, eyes. It's got everything.
But how does
it's a fork? That's why its name's Forky.
I you can see how much I paid attention to that movie.
But beyond that, it's like. Andy walks into the room and they all just collapse to the ground.
Yeah.
Like it's innate in them to just not move when Andy's around. But then they're in the pizza planet and they're climbing through the alien claw machine. I mean, kids, there's people everywhere, but they're running through. Like, what's the rules here? The movie never establishes the rules.
Never.
So why does Buzz act like a toy if he doesn't know he's a toy?
I have no answers for you.
So as good as the storytelling is, that's a major flaw.
There are so many times in this movie where things just happen and you just have to kind of go with it, and that's not fully acceptable.
Yeah. Which wouldn't happen today. Like, people would be rioting in the streets about how this doesn't make sense. I mean, people still talk about Toy Story to this day about how it doesn't make sense and they want answers and all this stuff. So... that aspect of it I don't think holds up very well. One of the things that works and doesn't work for me, and you'll have to tell me what you think, is Sid. Sid is a great bad guy. What's the most terrifying thing to a toy? A kid who blows up toys. Like, that's terrifying as a toy, to be like, never go to his house, you will die. I mean, you won't die, because you can still move. You can do whatever you want, even after he blows you up.
I mean, if he blows you up, you're gone forever.
Terrifying. Well, I don't know. There was an army man, half-eaten or whatever, coming out of the mud at the end, so who knows. But, so he's great. What bothers me about him, though, where the hell are his parents? This kid ordered a rocket. How he ordered a rocket, I don't know, because online shopping didn't really exist in 1995, so he couldn't just jump on the computer and go to Amazon and order something. So, how did this kid order a rocket without his parents knowing? And if they did help him order the rocket, those are terrible parents. This is a
no
10-year-old kid with a rocket.
Well, I mean, we see one parent throughout the film for him, and I believe that's his father, and we are to assume that he is
Well, he's drunk. Yeah. But he screams for mom.
So
Mom, where are the matches?
Mom does exist, but maybe if she's just appeasing him. He's a demon child at this point.
But like in today, that would never fly.
Oh, no.
Ever.
Showing
With
a
all the helicopter
kid
parenting,
having a rocket or something dangerous like that would not happen.
or just being so maniacal would just never happen.
Like, you don't see that kind of demon child
So,
anymore.
Yeah. So as great as he is, overall, it's just what was happening.
Yeah, he's rather problematic with how sadistic they make him out to be. Like, you can make that character and make him just a little less sadistic and crazy, and it would still play the same, but you had to, like, really go all out for that character, and it just, it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we continue breaking down the movie a little bit, more fun facts. Fun facts. Fun Fact Friday. Here we go. So, obviously, you all know this was the first ever CGI animated film. I mentioned that back at the beginning. Yeah. But something you may or may not know is how many people made this movie. So, the original crew was only 24 people.
Dang.
Directors and animators, 24. By the time it really ramped up, it got to 110 people. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot, 110. For reference point, and I know this wasn't a computer animated film, but The Lion King had 800 artists working on it. And I get it, you're drawn by hand, there's a lot more to it, but you're still drawing on the computer. There's still a lot of work.
Yeah.
So for this movie to be made with only 110 people, when your average CGI film now, your computer-generated animated film nowadays, is in the hundreds of people, to only have 110, it's amazing this movie even got made.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't take 10 years to make.
Oh, it did. I mean, they started working on it, it wasn't 10 years, but it was like 3 years of them really working on it before they could fine-tune everything and get it done. And then this movie came out on November 22nd, 1995. Do you know what the highest-grossing movie of 1995 was?
Does it look like I know?
No, it doesn't. But, gotta play to the crowd here. It's Toy Story. So it's a little convoluted, but in 1995, the highest animated film was actually Batman Forever with 184 million domestic. But Toy Story came out in late November and played through early 1996. So if you account for all the money it made in 1995 and 1996, it becomes the highest grossing movie released in 1995 with 196 million domestic.
I think that's cheating.
No.
It's cheating.
It's when it got released.
Yeah, but that money wasn't made in that year.
But the movie was made in that year. It was released in that year. So that's just a crazy fact of that's a Batman movie.
Yeah.
That it beat out for the highest grossing film released in 1995. This is an untested idea that they threw into theaters. I think it only made $11 million its opening weekend, which today's standards is not a lot. Back then it was a pretty good opening. But, it might have just been more curiosity. And then it just went and went and went. And one of my favorite sayings is, this movie had legs, and it just never stopped playing, and people just kept going to see it, and all of a sudden it almost reaches $200 million domestic. Adjusted for inflation, that's a $500 million take here in 2022.
On a no-name
domestic,
movie.
On a no-name movie, no IP, computer-generated thing that, people were like, oh, we just saw Lion King. That was pretty brilliant, but that's 2D. I don't want to see this 3D thing. That's super weird. And then it crushes things. It's amazing. But, back to the actual movie. One thing that bothers me the most about Toy Story, the toys themselves look pretty good.
Yeah.
Does it hold up to today's standards? It's not quite there, but it's good. It's better than some CGI I've seen in movies in today.
Oh, yeah. With the level of detail that they get on mostly their main toys.
But everything else in the movie is garbage.
Oh, absolutely.
The house
trash.
looks like crap. The dog looks like crap. When you go
that
see
dog
Toy
is
Story
nightmare
4,
fuel.
Yeah, when you go see Toy Story 4 and it looks like a real cat,
Yeah.
And then you watch this dog and you're like, how did I ever think that was real back in
Oh,
1995?
yeah. It had weird.
What was my dumb little 9-year-old
slanted
brain?
eyes that.
Yeah, it just didn't work. But everything about it, outside of the toys, didn't work. The hallways didn't work. The cars didn't work. The crane games, the kids,
Yeah.
everything just, it's all off-putting. Except the toys, they're the only thing for me out of the CGI that really hold up well.
Mostly because they didn't have to be made as if they were super realistic, because they're toys. They can look a little fake, and it's okay. Whereas you go to have people and dogs, things that have life naturally, and it just, you don't see it. They
just
don't
wasn't
move
there.
right. There's no
Yeah.
actual texture to any of them. It's okay for toys to not have texture. Their hair is
But
just
they
painted
had
on.
texture. Their faces had texture.
I
There was
understand.
lines. There was detail. There was a sheen. That plasticky sheen to them.
Oh yeah,
But then the people
you
still
can't
had that
do
sheen.
Really, any of the fabric had a little bit on the toys, but they just didn't put that kind of effort into the humans and the world around
No,
them.
and it was a little disappointing, though, because I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, man, these toys are really cool. Everything looks good. That's a badass-looking Mr. Potato Head. What is this? What is this Andy creature coming in here?
Why does he
Why-
also look like a
He's-
demon child?
He's alien. This is unnerving.
Yeah, that part of the CGI just really does not hold up to me, and it takes me out of the experience whenever I have to deal with any of the actual like humans in the story.
Yes. Oh my god, it's so bad. So bad.
Like I said, that dog, nightmare fuel.
Oh my,
that-
so much nightmare fuel. Like, I'm pretty sure that dog is the sole reason why most people didn't have dogs while I was growing up.
Could definitely be.
It was like, the kid was like, Mom, I want a dog. And they sat down and watched Toy Story, and the kid was like, never mind.
Yeah, no.
I'm crying. Just
No.
tears. I don't want a dog now. Like, that dog, it was terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Some of the dolls were terrifying, too.
But I
so-
will say the level of detail that they did put on, like Buzz and Woody, where you saw little nicks in their like fingers, you saw them get a little dirty. Mm-hmm. It that was really well done. I just wish they had taken the time to really put that love and care into the rest of
Right,
the
like,
world.
if this movie would have came out in 1997 and they would have, like, waited and really built up the animation and really worked on all aspects of it, maybe it's a little bit better.
Yeah, because I would have almost liked to rather see this movie do that classic hand-drawn look, because it would have been much more crisp than it was. So maybe like mixing it, but we also know
But we know
mixing
that
it doesn't
doesn't
work
work
really
either,
well
so-
either. So.
Who knows? Who knows? It was bothersome for me. One of the things that wasn't bothersome for me, though, was the theme. And I haven't seen another movie really, especially any animated films, around that time or even up until, more recently, that really got to the heart of acceptance and replacement. Like, Woody's whole arc of, like, scared of being replaced by the person you thought loved you most, that's a universal thing that everybody can connect to. And that's the core of this movie for me. That's why I think people remember this movie, is that struggle of being replaced, feeling unloved, finding out that the person you've spent your entire life with wants to be with someone else now. Like, I know we're talking about toys here, but you can put that into your own life. You've probably been there at some point. And that's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I mean, this really began that whole idea of these animated features having a lot more serious concepts and themes and aspects that really showed kids how to deal with certain emotions, showed them like these complex situations in the light and in the way that a kid could understand and process.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, like, watching Lion King, I was like, well, I'm not a prince gonna take over an entire thing, and I didn't kill my dad. So it's really hard to
connect. My
connect.
uncle didn't kill my dad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he thinks he killed his dad. So it's really hard to connect to that. I'm not a French girl in a castle with a beast. And I get, like, there's certain themes there, because I'm not a toy either. But the theme was falling in love with someone from Beauty and the Beast was, like, for me, falling in love with somebody that you're looking past their visuals. Mm-hmm. but at the same time, he imprisoned you in a castle.
Yeah, that screams Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, and it's not. Like, they definitely tried to show that she actually got to know him and all that, but, like, there was no connection for me there. Same thing with Lion King, same thing with Aladdin. Like, I get what they were going for, but there wasn't connection. Then all of a sudden, I'm watching this and I'm connecting. Hey, why? Even as a kid, it's like, you had a best friend and now he's friends with somebody else, or she's friends with somebody else. How do we deal with that? That's such a nice thing for even kids and or adults to really get behind and find themselves in, and that resonates with an audience. That's what makes people want to watch it again or want to love it.
Well, I think that has been kind of his overarching arc, was learning, what's best for this person that I love is not always going to be what's best for me. And that really comes home in the later films, especially like the fourth film where he has to learn that Forky is what's important, and that's all that's going to be important. So if you love this person, you're going to do what's good for them, even if it's not always what you think is best for you.
And that's just emotionally
that's deep.
It's deep, and it's emotionally devastating, because we don't want to look at things like that. We want to look at things as like, ha 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 ha, I will always be around, I am the best. And this movie was like, that's not possible at times. Like, you didn't do anything wrong, Woody. You just happen to be old hat. There's a new person in town. There's a new toy. I'm sorry, you didn't do anything, but you're getting replaced anyway. And that's so visceral and so emotional. And that's kind of what I think brings people back to this movie.
Back to this franchise.
Because they kept that theme going. And, I mean, watching it again at 30, almost 36 years old, it's like, I still feel that. I watched it as a 10-year-old, felt it. I watched it as a 36-year-old, and I still feel that disconnect of wanting something you can't have.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, it did cover such deep feelings and thoughts in such a way that, it's heavy, but they still were able to lighten it up enough to be a kid's movie, to be like, okay, well, here's how we're gonna get through this.
Yep. And coming full circle, I think that's really on the writers with the script of like having those lighthearted moments with drama, and they never really undercut their drama. There's a lot of movies that like, oh, we're getting serious, we're getting dramatic. Oh, undercut it with a joke. Marvel movies are the worst with that.
Oof,
and we're not going to go into that, but it's drama, undercut it. Here, it was like, during the emotional states, let it be emotional.
Yeah.
And then we can build back into the comedy.
Yeah, it let us sit with those moments, especially with Woody's realization when he's stuck under the crate.
Before Buzz decides to help him out, he's resigned himself, like, of just let it go, and it's just this sad moment.
Yep.
Sad moment. And then Buzz is like, no, it's cool, I'm gonna help you out. Yeah. But even that's not comedy.
It's not
that's
a comedy.
Them working together.
Yeah.
It's a build moment. And that's what I think works so well in this movie. And I think it's one of the aspects that does hold up for me is it's timeless. The story is timeless. The last thing from the movie that I really wanted to touch upon before we start really talking about what does it hold up or not overall is, how are you going to do Sid dirty like that? You scarred that kid for life. And I get it. In later movies, in Toy Story 3, he's all like, he's the garbage man, or people think he's toys. The garbage man who... But we don't know that. The movie doesn't tell us that. We're just assuming he's a garbage man and that he saves toys that have been thrown out.
Yeah. We're led to assume that based on the shirt on the garbage man.
No, I get that it's Sid, but we're putting our own connotation on it of oh, he saves toys. We don't know that. For all we know, he's still destroying toys. Who knows? But, man, they scarred that kid for life.
Oh, that was such a horror
He thinks he's just having a good
film.
time, and all of a sudden these toys are coming up out of the ground and attacking him, and Woody's doing the Exorcist 360 head, and just really, it's not even just the talking. Woody's mouth is moving. His eyes are moving. He's moving. That's terrifying to a kid. I mean, he runs away from his little sister's doll after that. Oh, yeah. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, that kid will never play with toys again.
Ever. Like,
Which could also make him way worse if he was a real psychopath.
it could make him way worse. Maybe he's a garbage man because he's secretly building some evil contraption. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's terrifying.
Yeah, that was quite, like, almost a little bit of a horror scene in a kid's movie. Just how graphic and, like, just creepy all of it was. And it was meant to do that. Just to get this kid to stop, but, like...
But I think it went too far.
It did.
And it also breaks the illusion of when can these toys decide to move or not move? Again, what is the answer there? Because you're not supposed to move when people are around, but now they can just choose to move.
Which makes Buzz's thing completely worse.
Yeah, completely worse. But one of the problems with that is as good as the script is, as good as the screenplay is, there had to be a different way to get Sid to stop.
Yeah.
I think scarring the kid was a little too far. Watching it as a kid, obviously you get scarred because you're the kid, but watching it as an adult, it's unnerving and it feels wrong. It feels like you guys went too far. There was no reason you had to... Basically, this kid's going to be in therapy for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Because of what happens on this afternoon.
My problem is I wouldn't know what to do instead of that. Like, how do you get it into this kid's head? Because clearly he's been doing this for a while.
But the kid getting into his head doesn't matter. He doesn't know toys are alive. So he's not doing anything wrong. So you scarred this kid because he doesn't know any better? He doesn't know toys can talk and have feelings and all this stuff. He thinks they're just toys, like we all just think they're toys. So instead of like calmly talking to him or something, you're like, no, we're gonna pull something straight out of a Stanley Kubrick horror film and attack you with all these toys and you're gonna lose your mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's too much. I didn't like it as an ending.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it.
I mean, the only thought you could do is maybe they made it so graphic just so the kid could rationalize and be like, well, maybe I was dreaming.
Maybe, but who dreams in the middle of the day standing in their backyard?
Who knows?
Who knows? So it's a little too far. And then we go into the actual end of the movie with the RC car and everything. And once again, playing fast and loose with rules because all the toys can talk and move and do whatever they want, but the RC car still needs its controller? Doesn't really make sense. What constitutes a full living toy and a half living toy? Why can some toys do everything and some toys can't do crap? And then some toys can't talk, but the binoculars can talk? They don't even have a mouth.
Yeah. No idea.
So there's a lot of little things like that. As much as they have great little details, they have terrible little details as well. But Woody and Buzz get on RC and chase scene and all that stuff, and they take off in a rocket, and it explodes, and they boom.
Falling with style.
Falling with style, right into the car. And nobody notices.
Nope.
The people in this movie are oblivious to all of their surroundings. And maybe people were in 1995. I don't really remember. But, man, it's just nothing. Nothing is seen, ever. And it's just crazy.
It must go by the Harry Potter rules of muggles. They just don't see what they don't want to see,
just
you know?
Muggles. So, and then everything just ends on a happy note. I wish there was a little more gravitas to what happened to the toys. I wish that something would have actually happened to one of them. I know Woody gets a little burn on the forehead.
Which is gone by the next movie.
She's gone later in the same movie. So I just wish there was something more to really hammer home the perils that they had been through. But what are you going to do? I didn't write it.
Yeah, and I guess that's their making up for the fact that they scarred Sid.
Yeah.
It's that they didn't scar everyone else by having a toy just die.
Correct. So, putting all of my knowledge of film together, by my 4 years of study at a film school, Columbia College here in Chicago, good school, had a good time there, have a degree in film, in case you guys were ever wondering, well, what does he have the right to talk about films for? That's it. That's the thing. I have a degree in film, I've worked on film sets, I currently work on film sets in between podcasting, but using all of that knowledge, this movie doesn't hold up for me.
I have to agree. It does not hold up, and not just because I don't like the movie.
It doesn't have anything to do with me not liking the movie. I think parts of this movie are amazing and some of the best stuff I've ever seen. Parts of it I think are pretty bad. And overall, it's not just because the CGI, obviously technology got better and all that, but I think watching this movie in 2022, you show that to a kid nowadays, they're turning it off. It does not hold up.
Yeah, if it came out as the standalone film it was back in the day, it would be overlooked. Mm-hmm. It would be sadly overlooked because, like you said, the story, everything is spectacular. I just don't think this movie would have gotten the following it has today if it came out today, as it is.
I think you'll see this when we get to talk about some other movies, but gimmick movies I don't think hold up for the most part. And this was a gimmick movie, being the first fully computer-drawn film. That was its gimmick. Come see what's interesting about this. And I think that coming out today just gets lost in a sea of a bunch of other things. So, I mean, watching this movie today, there's a lot to redeeming about it, a lot not redeeming, but mostly you'll get bored and want to turn it off. I think the nostalgia part of you will love it more than the logical side of you will love it.
Oh, 100%.
So, sorry guys, don't mean to break your heart, but Toy Story, the original from 1995, just does not hold up.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, keep watching movies.
Bye.